On the line with me right now from the Master Chef show that you can watch on Fox every Monday night, we have Christine. Hi, how are you doing today, Christine?
I'm good.
Now, I'm just going to ask you a first question, kind of just a softball. Now, how did you get to, now, how was the audition process on getting on the show for you?
So the audition process is you go to an open casting call. So that's, tens of thousands of people going to the nearest city that they're doing an open casting call at. And so for me, it was in Austin, Texas, since I live in Houston. So my husband drove me up there and just, bring a dish that you make at home, and you go in and hopefully they taste it and like it. They interview you a little bit to see your personality and your story, and then you just move on from there. And you do several rounds of those sorts of auditions before you actually make it to the top 100 that get flown out to LA to cook for the judges.
Now, your story is one of the first ever in the show. You were actually the first blind contestant on Master Chef. Now, when were you first diagnosed? I know it was from neuromyelitis optica. Is that correct? NMO?
Yes, that's correct. NMO. I first started losing my vision in one of my eyes in 1999, and I was at the time currently in my undergraduate studies, and my vision in my right eye decreased, and I wasn't diagnosed then correctly. A few years later, I had another exacerbation where one of my legs went numb, and it kind of just felt like my foot was asleep, but, no matter how much I tried to stomp the life back into it, it wouldn't return. And so they misdiagnosed me at that time with multiple sclerosis, and I was put on MS medication, and I still kept getting a lot of flare-ups. And so I think it wasn't until 2004 that I was correctly diagnosed with NMO. And in 2004, at the same time, coincidentally, I also started losing vision in my other eye, and it decreased to the point where I could no longer drive. But it was still good enough that I could walk around just fine, and you wouldn't be able to tell, like I didn't need any assistance walking around. And then 3 years after that, in 2007, with more bouts of optic neuritis and, optic nerve inflammation, my vision decreased to where it is now, where I do need a cane to walk around, or at least some assistance from someone else, taking someone else's arm.
Okay, now were you actually training to be a chef then, or before then, or was it just something that happened afterwards?
No, actually, I had always, I think before that in college, I started enjoying cooking because I had to learn to cook out of sort of a survival need. Being away from home, no one was cooking for me, so I started learning to cook in college, and it just kind of started, my interest in it started increasing, and then that's also at the same time when I started losing my vision and was diagnosed with NMO, and it was kind of devastating because I thought that once I lost my vision, cooking was no longer something that was within my range that I could do. So, I did go through a period of time where I had to stop cooking and just kind of start over from scratch with everything. And I think, once I started just adapting to vision loss and learning how to do things differently, I think I just got myself back into the kitchen and started small and, just relearning how to use a knife without, just by touch, without being able to see, and then learning how to cook things on the stove or stir things on the stove and sauteing and boiling things. And it just, kind of slowly snowballed from that. And now I would say that I'm actually a better cook than I was even before I lost my vision.
Now, there's one thing when you said kind of having confidence in the kitchen, like using a knife. I'm scared to use a knife, and I'm fully sighted. So, I mean, now how long did it take you to develop confidence and be able to do certain things like that could be kind of dangerous in the kitchen?
I would say it took a while. It was definitely a learning process. I don't think it was something that I could just pick up and do overnight. It was just, but I think it's in my personality that I'm pretty persistent, and I guess you could say on the negative side I'm stubborn. But once I set my mind to something, I really just have to go, all the way and just get it done and persevere and just learn it. So, I mean, it definitely took a while. I can't, remember exactly how long that process was, but I'm sure it was several months before I got the courage to fully cook like a sighted person.
Okay, and now I noticed in the show, I know you've mentioned how much your senses come into play. Like I know during the audition, or not during the audition, but the first show, you were tasting the food before you were actually, start preparing it. I guess how much do you have to depend on your senses to cook, or your other senses to cook everything?
Oh, it's so vital for me to depend on all of my other senses. I never realized how sensual cooking is until I lost my vision, and then I realized I had to depend on all of my other senses. So, for example, I'm always tasting to see what kind of seasoning does this need? Does it need to be salty? Does it need an acidic component? Just trying to balance out the sense of taste of a dish. So, that's important. And, your sense of taste is also very closely linked to your olfactory senses. So, sense of smell, for example, I'll know by smell if the garlic on the stove is fragrant enough, or if it's, kind of turned past that and it's bitter and it's overcooked or burnt by the sense of smell. And sense of touch also, I can feel like a cut of meat and tell if it's seared enough or if it's, still raw. And just listening to things too, like I can throw a little bit of water on a hot pan, and if it sizzles a certain way, then I know it's hot enough to sear a piece of meat. And if you don't hear anything, then I know it's not hot enough. So I definitely depend on all of my other senses so much more now than obviously because I don't have the sense of sight.
Okay, and now before, when you first went on the show, we talked about that day. Had you met the judges before, or talked to the judges before you went on the show about about the disability?
No, not at all. They did not know that I was coming in as a sight-impaired person until I actually walked into that room on audition day.
Okay, and I guess just you hear a lot of conceptions about some of the judges, I guess, or how were their initial reactions to you?
I think, since I couldn't see them, I don't really know what their facial expressions were like, yes. But from what I could tell, I think they were surprised, and they told me they're not going to judge me any differently, nor would I expect them to. I think, having a disability like vision impairment or any other disability, I think we all just want to be treated the same. So I don't need quote unquote a handicap compared to all the other contestants, but I just need to do things differently. It's about adapting. So I'm not expected to be given more time. I'm not expecting to be given any favoritism or anything like that. And I think, they were stern with me from the beginning and telling me that, everyone has a story, everyone's got their reasons. I'm not expected to be judged differently, and I totally respect that, and I wouldn't want to be judged differently. So I think, their reaction was they were surprised, but I'm sure they noticed that I persisted with my love for cooking and food, and they recognized that in me by giving me an apron.
Now, I guess you mentioned adaptations. I guess, when you cook in your own kitchen or a familiar setting, it's a little bit different. But when you go to a show, everything's kind of, how they have everything set up. Now, what adaptations did you have to make, while cooking on the show?
Oh, geez. I remember just coming to that set and just being very nervous and scared because you're completely right. Being blind, you have to be very organized. And so I know my house inside and out. I know my kitchen inside and out. But going to Master Chef, it's a whole new kitchen station I have to get used to. The stove knobs turn differently than mine. The settings are different. The knives are different. Everything's just set up differently in the drawers. And it took me a while to get adapted to it. And, even with cooking with the spotlights on us, I'm not used to cooking with such bright light on me, and for me, I see best when it's not too dim and not too bright. So I think on set it was so bright that the lights were just glaring in my eyes, and so it definitely took me a few challenges to get used to my kitchen station and the lighting, and so it was very difficult and challenging at the beginning. But I think at the beginning I just also thought about those sorts of things, and I knew that would slow me down. So I tried to think strategically and think maybe about dishes that if they allotted us 60 minutes, I would think of a dish that I know I could execute in 50 minutes just to give myself that extra time. So a lot of the challenges about being on MasterChef is about strategy as much as culinary skill.
Now, I know I asked you about working with the judges and just how did working with the other cast members. Just how has that been? Knowing that, I mean, when you work with them, I guess they first found out that you were blind, and they kind of just how have they adapted to you, and how have you adapted to them?
I think that at the beginning, I think a lot of people didn't take me seriously and just thought I was, a TV gimmick or there for ratings or whatnot. And as the cast, started whittling down, I think, we all became very good friends because we are kind of taken out of our comfort zone from our homes. We're stripped of everything we know. We're not allowed to talk to family, friends, or anything. We're sequestered in, the MasterChef, environment. And so we got to know each other very well. And I think they started, a lot of them say that it didn't become a cutthroat competition because I was around, because, just out of human compassion, they're not going to stomp all over me to get to the pantry. And so, if I need help, the other cast members definitely help me. And I think a lot of them attribute our close friendship and our camaraderie to my being there. And so it became more about a compassionate competition rather than something that's cutthroat. So, I'm happy to know that I brought some sort of positive vibe to a competition, because I know it can be a very difficult thing to set those sorts of feelings aside. And, when you get closer and closer to being number one, the feelings, become stronger, and people want that prize really badly. And so, all sorts of ugly things could come out. But I think for the most part, everyone was very courteous, and, we all wanted each other to perform the best. And I think, we want the best person to win, and it's not about playing unfairly.
And I know, like you said, you brought a different aspect to the show. I know from viewer standpoints, but one thing that you brought, I think there's always an emotional attachment kind of with these shows when you're a viewer and you regularly consistently watch, you have your favorite contestant. But I think there was an emotional moment with the apple pie challenge that I think it touched everybody that saw that episode. Can you just walk us through the apple pie challenge, that episode for us, just that moment? I mean, just watching it, your reaction was one of those things that, it was hard not to feel an emotional attachment just to that moment, just from watching it.
Right. So it's funny with that apple pie. I remember baking it during those the allotted time, and I think the whole time I was kind of just laughing, because I think that must be my natural reaction to being nervous and giving up. And I just remember cracking up the whole time, because I was like, this is ridiculous, because I'm so going home today. I don't know what I'm doing. I knew, I was so slow rolling out my pie crust. It was getting holy, and it needed patching, and my apples, I was really slow. And so I had to crank my oven up to probably 500, the highest, or, a very high degree. Yeah. Put that pie in with only 18 minutes left, and I couldn't even see what it was looking like. So I was asking Cindy, my aide, how the crust was looking, and she's like, oh, it's still pale, but it's starting to brown. And so I was very nervous going up there. I had no idea what the pie looked like. And, the hard thing, too, is not knowing what anyone else's pie looked like. I'm sure if I could see everyone else's pie, I would feel better about mine, but I can't see mine. I can't see anyone else's pie. So my mind is always tends to be very self-deprecating, and I always think, what I do is not good enough. And even when people in the balcony says, oh, your pie is beautiful, I didn't believe it. And Felix, who was cooking behind me, she says, your pie looks probably the best next to mine. And then I still didn't believe her. So going up there to the judges, I think I was very scared and nervous. And then I think when, Chef Ramsay told me that my pie crust was beautiful, and it had caramelized, and he could pull a pie wedge out, I think I was just sort of overcome with, an emotion, because especially just in his voice too, I could hear that he wanted so badly for me to believe in myself. And I think, that was very emotional, I think, not only for me, but for, everyone else in the room, because I heard everyone else was tearing up listening to my judgment. And I think it was just a moment where it kind of clicked in my head that, hey, I belong here, and that I'm not a fluke, and I need to start believing in myself. And it was definitely very emotional and positive in a way. Yeah, very positive emotions. I think it was like a floodgate just kind of opened, obviously, with my tear ducts, too.
Now, now I want to ask you: was that the most difficult challenge? I know the end result was pretty good for you, or was the crab incident the most difficult one so far?
I would say that apple pie is the most difficult because I am not a baker.
Yeah.
I am more into savory foods. Baking is such a precise science. You have to measure everything out exactly. Everything is timed exactly. I tend to like to think of food as an art where you kind of start with something and you don't exactly know how the end product will be. So baking is definitely the thorn in my side, and so I would say the apple pie is the most difficult. Plus, cooking under pressure in the pressure test, I think, is just way difficult because you're all executing something that is kind of precise, something that's kind of the same. You don't really have a way to show yourself creatively. Everyone's just being judged on the same dish, and your time is usually very limited.
Okay, and I guess just kind of going back to, I already asked you the most difficult. I guess what has been your favorite moment or favorite challenge so far?
I would have to say the food truck challenge that had just aired. That is probably. Yeah, it was probably my favorite. I normally don't love team challenges just because it takes us out of the kitchen, so it's a whole new environment I have to get used to. But I think I love food trucks, I love the beach, and I love Indian food, and I loved my team that I was put on, and I think it was a team challenge that I could excel at because immediately when I knew our cuisine, I was like, I knew exactly what we should make and I knew how to make it. And so I felt like for once, instead of, on the other hand, from Camp Pendleton when we cooked for the Marines, I think I was really uncomfortable there because I didn't know exactly, how to execute the pasta dish that Frank wanted. But I think in this one, I was really able to step up and contribute a lot to our team, and I think I excelled at it. And so it felt good to finally be able to feel like I was really part of a team and actually almost carry that team to victory.
Definitely. Now, I know you you make the dishes that you're required to in a show. And you say Indian food is kind of one of the things that you like to make. I guess, what is your favorite recipe dish to make yourself, just, I guess, to taste or just for other people?
At home, you mean?
Yes, at home.
Oh, that's actually a very hard question. I've been getting a lot of those questions, and, of course people want to know what my favorite dish is to cook, but I honestly don't have one favorite dish. I think I really love variety, so I tend to, and I also love experimenting, so I really like cooking all sorts of dishes, and the one thing that is always the same is I always think, okay, what do I want to eat today? What do I feel like eating? What, do I feel like something that's like hearty or do I feel like something light? I don't exactly have one favorite dish to cook, but I always just kind of go by what I feel like eating that day, and I kind of just run with it. So there's really not one exact dish that I like to cook, but it just depends on. I always ask myself what I feel like eating, and that's what I cook for whoever wants to come eat.
Definitely. And I guess, what are your long-term goals in the culinary area? What do you want to do? Or I guess, 20 years from now, what do you want to say where do you want to be at in that field?
So I think I definitely love food, and outside of that, I'm also a writer, and I'm in graduate school for getting my MFA in creative writing, and those are the two things that I think I really love. And the thing they have in common is that's how I connect with other people and how I share myself with other people and connecting on an emotional level. And so I would love to continue to write about food. And, I think also culinary-wise, I would love to get some more formal culinary training because, I still consider myself just a cook and not a chef. So I would want to learn more techniques, culinary techniques, and learn about more ingredients and things like that. And then eventually I think I would love to open a gastropub, which is sort of like a pub, but you also have really good gourmet food to dine on while you're drinking like craft beers. And so I would love to open something like that because that's an environment I love hanging out in. I love going to places, you know, to just have craft beers with good friends and then have really good small plates. And so I would love to open something like that. And, you know, also another thing is to open an ice cream shop because I've been experimenting with a lot of creative ice cream flavors. So I would just love to open kind of like a mom and pop shop and just feed people in Houston and hopefully maybe be able to expand also to other cities eventually.
Definitely. When you said the whole craft beer thing and food and small plates, you had me sold right there. I'm over here. I'm like, thank God it's almost lunchtime. So so you had me right there. Now another thing, like I said, like I said, your food blog. I was going to mention that as well, and I read a couple things from there. And like I said, that I don't even think about that right now. Like I said, I'm glad it's almost lunchtime. Now you're a writer, chef. I guess I can throw in a reality show star now too as well. So I guess I got to throw it in. But what I'm trying to get at is a lot of our population that listens to this station are blind or visually impaired. And you have broken a lot of molds and can be an inspiration to these people. I guess if there's a message you like to deliver just for people looking to achieve a goal, but, you know, maybe feel like it's impossible due to something, you know, being not being sighted, I guess what would you like to tell them?
I guess my thing I would want to tell people, you know, with vision impairment or any sort of challenge, is I think, you know, when you go through challenges like losing your vision, for myself, it will not be a good time. It's like I say, it's going to suck, and it's okay to cry about it, and it's okay to feel sorry for yourself, but only to a certain point. I think that's all very healthy and normal to grieve your vision. But, you know, at one point or someday you have to really pick yourself up and try to focus on the future and the positive things in life and move on and forward. And, you know, I like to say that everyone in life is dealt a certain hand, and you know, some people are dealt better hands, some people are dealt worse hands, but it's not really about what hand you're dealt, but how you play that hand that shows your character. And I think all sorts of trials and tribulations in life and challenges, they help you build character. And I think when you have really good character, there's a lot of good reward that comes from it. And so I think it's really about learning to adapt and learning how to play that hand. And it's good to keep a very good support network around you, a community of people, I think, that will pick you up when you're down. And I think to have those sorts of people around you, you have to be a person that's willing to be loved and lovable yourself. So I think those are probably the key things that I would want to tell people that are trying to achieve goals despite any sort of challenge.
Definitely, Christine. I definitely thank you for taking time. I know you're pretty busy these days with your schedule, and trust me, the people at Mind's Eye, the staff, listeners, we are pulling for you. We watch every Monday with, you know, on the edge of our seats, hoping that it's not your name called at the end of the show. So
thank you so much.
Definitely rooting for you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.